Alrighty, we are live over the internet, which is our subject. We will be talking about the internet. I'm going to try to go slower in this video. Overcoming internet addiction. Like the other books that I discussed with you recently, I have skimmed through this one over the course of a single day about a month ago. And it's time to take it back to the library, and there are some things that I'm going to share with you regarding this book. But there's also the spiritual perspective, the understanding of the agenda to manipulate us with disinformation. There is the issue of algorithmic manipulation. And of course, there is the issue with the potential of entity possession or manipulation of human beings that don't know that these screens, the laptop, the smartphones, although they don't really result in people becoming very smart, it results in spiritual warfare or attack, also known as psychic attack. Those topics are not discussed in this book, so we don't have time to get into everything. But there are certain subjects, right, that I am going to zone in on. I didn't take a lot of time to prep for this show, so we're just going to go over some of the basics. It gets into also the addiction to streaming video content, other things. And so this way of life that we are in has become normalized. And even though the internet has the ability to connect people around the world, what I've said for years about Facebook is that Facebook is the place where relationships go to die. As people get used to connecting just on Facebook, they lose the interest in real world activity, just like pornography addiction results in some people developing a lack of sensitivity when it comes to real sex and not a desire to meet a real person. Not that that's really important, but I'm just giving you an example of how the various types of internet addictions adversely impacts mental health. And so we've seen a sharp increase in suicides in the United States and around the world since 2012 as computer processing power has gone up, and away. And I'm sure there are other factors as well. So it was easy for me to forecast in 2010 that by 2020, we would see an explosion in suicides. And so the current way of life has definitely played a role in that. So let's go back and forth. This is quite the book. How do you know whether your digital vice has become your digital vice? This isn't an easy question to answer, as everyone has their own personal values about time, and everyone is different in terms of how much disruption is tolerable in their lives. Your technology use is often, in part, determined by your values around how you use your time and the consciousness you bring to your internet use. Now, I am wearing blue light glasses. It helps to protect yourself from the invasive blue light energies that come through the screen. Video games, streaming audio, video, online gambling, online investing, online shopping, online sex and pornography. And then, of course, there's the dark web. I've never engaged in, quote, online sex, and I've never engaged in going over to the dark web. I've never seen an advantage to it personally, but a lot of people do spend a lot of time on it. The first section is identifying the signs and symptoms of internet and screen addiction. So instead of read to you all of that, some of you, most of you are intelligent enough to know what it's talking about. Like I said, in the title, Overcoming Internet Addiction for Dummies, some people really do need it dumbed down and need it explained to them that spending 10 hours a day is not very healthy. Cybersecurity, cyber stalking, and cyber bullying. Understanding the end of privacy as you knew it. Recognizing the myth of anonymity on the internet. And so there's a number of books that you can get on that topic as well, which I should have read a long time ago. It deals with how to be invisible on the web. And if you're an activist, if you're a dissident, which is the proper term to use for today's day and age, where it's not safe to just share your full mind, but I'm doing that anyways, because I'm already in too deep. But for those of you that are not already targeted, that are not already in too deep, you might want to take certain measures to protect your privacy. And it's not easy, right? But you need to have it explained to you if that's really what you're interested in. Knowing about clearing cookies and caches, preventing malware, preventing viruses, and also psychological viruses, staying away from the wrong websites in which there may be some mind control at play, or for those that are not hip to that, propaganda. Because everyone online is vulnerable to hacking, there is a risk that sensitive information, such as finances or other personal data, can be hacked into, stolen, ransomed, or corrupted. Nothing is fully safe and secure online, and care must be taken to protect sensitive and private information, including, but not limited to, financial data. And I'll just keep adding information here and there. You should know that Russia and China have been attacking the US with cyber attacks for a number of years now. And so there are, in fact, city employees in certain places in the US in which their data has been taken by Russian hackers that are technically working outside of Putin's influence, but we don't really know that for sure. And then you have the attacks on the American people, their emails, their bank account information, their TikTok accounts. And there's a lot of women out there that are defending TikTok because TikTok plays into some of their vanity, in which they're willing to do almost anything for clicks and views. I would say that there's a deeper agenda why China is accessing this info. And you want more info on that, watch my other videos. Studying the biology of addiction, chapter 2. The biology of addiction. Addiction can produce numerous negative psychological and behavioral effects. A large part of the addiction process is directly connected to the neurobiology of the brain. You know, I don't think that it is in our nature as human beings to be typing text messages back and forth all day long. Just to be frank with you, I identify as a human who writes with a pen and paper. I have this many journals full of my writings over the years. And there's something enjoyable about that as opposed to just typing. And thank God we have voice to text recognition that the humans can use, not just AI surveillance on the humans, which has been around for years, more than we know. But now we can write books by just simply speaking into a computer or just speaking into a microphone. And so we now see the transcript option on YouTube, the transcript option on Substack, and it's totally free. And so even though we deal with AI manipulation and shadow banning, we should still use the tools available to us for the highest good. After all, our information is already being inserted into the AI database. So continue. This is going to be probably a 2-hour video. So it's not going to be for everybody. But I realize I talk pretty fast. And I don't want to give you more information that you can absorb. It's really important that you have the basics. Discovering humans' original addictions. Many brain structures involved in our survival have to do with pleasure, such as the ventral tegmental area and other things I can't even enunciate. Many parts of the brain fall into addiction. Dopamine, right? Talk about that addiction to dopamine, those likes, those comments. Dopamine is one of the major neurotransmitters responsible for pleasure and movement. So why would our survival be linked to an excitatory pleasure neurotransmitter? Well, as nature would have it, mammal survival is at least minimally based on the ability to engage in two behaviors on a predictable, consistent, and efficient basis. In other words, nature essentially needs a strong guarantee from a genetic survival perspective that can increase the odds at survival. The interesting thing here is that food, or more specifically eating, is highly pleasurable. A strong biological pleasure drive, not just hunger, is linked to consuming food, and this is nature's way of ensuring that food is consumed. The same applies to procreation and sex. Obviously, it would make sense to make procreation pleasurable on some level. not just humans, but all mammals, have dopamine linked to their mating behavior. This is nature's hedge to increase the odds at fulfilling the biological imperative, to get genes transferred into the next generation. This is the basic survival instinct that accounts for at least part of human behavior, the cycle of life, if you will. Distinguishing the new brain from the old brain. When we refer to new brain or old brain, what we're really talking about is how the different parts of the brain developed from an evolutionary biological perspective. As mammals evolved over eons, the brain developed in increasing in complexity from the bottom up. There's a lot here. Identifying the parts of the brain involved in addiction. So here's my commentary with regards to this section. And of course, there's a picture of the brain here, and you can obtain this book or get information on it and learn about the science of the brain. So what I'm going to say is, a lot of us, we look for those likes and we look for those comments from a rational perspective, right? In the defense of dopamine chasing, let me say this, right? It makes sense for us to want to have our tribe and community. And in the modern day and age, it's Facebook, it's YouTube, it's social media, where many of us have become isolated, not just because of internet addiction, but because of propaganda that may lead to some of us being interfered with in society, but also because of the propaganda out there. A lot of people and the unhealthy media, a lot of people out there in modern day society are not safe. And so internet addiction comes about when we're spending a lot of time online trying to find our tribe. There are the unintended consequences or side effects associated with our lives being online all the time. From a spiritual or psychic perspective, when one's really tapped into psychic ability, when people go in, for example, to someone's group and go, "Where is Alex? Why haven't I seen Alex? Why isn't he denouncing what's happening in Portland? Are you for this?" Right? It can cause someone, right, psychically to pick up on that in their dream state and even shut down a whole group, so that type of interference isn't sensed anymore. So I remember shutting down certain groups in 2020 when I didn't want to be online, because I was too psychically tapped in to the things that were being said about me in that group. You're not going to learn about that from this book. So when we talk about internet addiction and the problems of the internet and putting your image on the internet and talking to people on the internet, is what happens when those people talk back to you and they're looking for you and they want information on you when they should be focused on the information that you're sharing. So as a truth speaker on the internet, putting out information, putting out your soul essence, it's going to attract a wide variety of people that take energy in the form of your energy coming through the video. And so for hypersensitive individuals like myself, even if you're properly shielded, even if you believe in Jesus or something else, and you pray and you meditate, right? If you're tapped in, you're still going to be picking up on those internet energies. Last night, I had a dream where a demon was very angry with me based on my recent uploads. And instead of look at that as an omen of bad things in the future, I'm just going to look at that as another psychic attack, just like other psychic attacks where I have dreams where there's guns being fired at me or into the home that I currently reside in. Not good dreams, but backlash energy to me returning to the internet and showing my light again. So spiritual beings that are on the path, if you're going to put your energy and your life essence and literally share spiritual teachings that may be in your DNA, things are going to happen. And if you're one of the few that's speaking of certain futuristic scenarios, as I do, there may be certain forces of evil that are looking in your direction, right? It may not just be human-based. So I'm going to go back and forth between reading excerpts of this book. It's a big book, obviously, so I don't know how we can do this, but there's certain things that I need to get to, like the recommended amount of screen time. Recreational screen time is recommended to be 2 hours. That's not including work time, for example, those that work online. So I'm not sure exactly what is the proper amount, but in my heart, I think that at most, for a disciplined person, 4 hours. Minimal recreation time, maximum work time, with maybe an occasional one movie a day. As for myself, I spent about a month off of the internet to rewire my brain before returning to the internet, right? I left in 2019, 2020, the internet. I wasn't even on the internet during COVID-19, but I watched lots of Roku, so I was on the internet, but I wasn't on social media. I felt a spiritual calling to get away from social media, to get away from YouTube. And in reality, since 2012, we have been in some very, very dark, dark times. So even though the world didn't end, now the world didn't end, the world is still here, from the suicides and the increase in murders overseas and mass shootings in the US, which we have not seen in human history. It's not an anti-gun argument, but we're armed to the teeth. And instead of people using their guns collectively in this nation solely for self-defense, we have a lot of trigger-happy people, from police to individuals to criminals. And that's the God-honest truth. That's not an anti-gun discussion. That's the reality of the situation from a human being who doesn't have a gun, who knows that if I'm in a road rage situation with somebody here locally, they are likely to be armed. And so it's not wise for me to run around flipping people off if I'm cut off, even if I'm angry. It's probably not wise of me to run around megaphoning while driving like I used to back in the day. But honestly, the way things are going with the news, I almost want to run around with a megaphone in my community like Paul Revere. The Chinese are coming. World War III is coming. Prepare, prepare. The solar flares, the solar flares. There's a lot of things that I would like to say to this community at this time, but the receptiveness is not there. I came back to Facebook over the summer and I posted in some telepathy groups that are supposedly full of spiritual people trying to get psychic information. And that's a big no-no, to talk with people that are not genuinely psychic, because many people are not. Many people have that psychic ability to receive information, but not the discernment to differentiate whether it's from the demonic realms and those which are masquerading as ascended masters and that which is truly from God. There's a real lack of discernment. So let's read some more. Triggers and relapse. Triggers are part of every addiction. A trigger is a psychological tickle that excites the reward system in your brain, which remembers the pleasure it felt when it engaged in the addictive behavior. The other interesting thing to note is that a trigger can elicit an anticipation response for getting that dopamine hit. And in many cases, that anticipatory dopamine hit can be twice as powerful as the dopamine hit from the actual behavior. Okay, so for those of us addicted to Facebook, we could be thinking about Facebook and it can literally give us that dopamine hit by thinking about what type of likes we're gonna get. And because many of us want to get out our ideas and help people, some of us deal with shadow banning and interference. So we don't get those likes because we don't have those viewers. The other thing is, in the TikTok generation, a lot of people like these short videos. It's like McDonald's, your way, right away. They can only handle a few seconds. And this is something that I do not identify with, this lower level intellectual capability that does not have an attention span. And I would say that, you know, people do have an attention span if they're playing violent video games for 12 hours or if they're binge watching Netflix. So in reality, you have the ability to sit down through one of my videos. So does the rest of society if they wanted to. But in reality, many people opt for the fast food junk. The dopamine hits from being bombarded with certain types of violent imagery. And so they're probably going to discuss the what's called the digital detox at some point. And that is where you take a break from screens for an extended period in time. And that includes a number of things on the internet. That includes movies. That includes smartphones. I recommend that people get rid of their smartphones unless they need it for an emergency. I still have one. But because I experience interference, like I try to dial, for example, my doctor. And of course, it keeps hanging up on me 10 times in a row. I get robocalls. I get unusual voicemails from people that I've never called that think that they're coming over. So there's some weird interference that I've dealt with. And so for me to be addicted to the phone is a big, big no-no, because these phones, you won't hear this in this book, they manipulate and they warp the human auric field. So spiritual people that talk about grounding and shielding, it's almost hypocritical for them to not talk about what these electronic devices are doing to us. So I always recommend to people that want to consume my content to consume it through a laptop where possible, and where possible to download that content and watch it offline. The one reason I'm online so much right now and uploading so much is because we don't know how much time we have left to warn people about the things that are taking place. So I'm here to be in service to humanity. So I may experience nightmares, insomnia, because I'm now corded again to the internet and those people that are watching me. But I'm not doing this to waste time. I'm doing this for my own mental health, because I did not feel great, ladies and gentlemen, during that period in time in which I was not creating content. And so for me to feel well again, I had to re-examine that attitude that I had, that I was done with the internet, that my job was over. No, no, no. I just simply needed to take a break. And by the way, I pray in the name of Jesus that this video will not be shadow banned, and that random people will find this on the internet that will be learning from this, and that they will also come over and see my other work and spiritual views. Defining infotainment, page 64, out of a 300-page book. Early on in my work with internet addiction, I coined the term infotainment to describe what we all do to some extent with the internet, and especially our smartphones. Information has taken on an entertaining quality, and it can keep our eyes on screen for content providers to data mine and sell us things. I would add that social media has this quality, driving our excessive use. This new stimulation to our brain and our limbic system, reward system, is scanning for novel and stimulating pieces of information. Digital drug delivery is very similar to how drugs are metabolized in our bodies. And so if someone's going to go on a digital detox, there are physical withdrawal symptoms. But if you go with God and you know in your heart why you're quitting what you're quitting, whether it be certain movies, pornography, drugs, alcohol, nicotine, maybe a break from cannabis if you need it, highly recommend the tolerance break from that, or things like Delta-8, which is a synthetic cannabinoid. There's going to be certain withdrawal symptoms that are psychological and physical. But with proper rest, with proper nutrition, with meditation, you can overcome those things. So I believe that you can quit multiple things cold turkey. Granted, you have the right mindset as to why you're quitting. It's like with AA and the 12 steps. If you have a reservation, right, and you're not really ready to quit, or you haven't hit bottom, it's going to be more difficult for you to quit certain substances. So when I see certain people on the internet say that, you can't do certain things cold turkey, and that you need a treatment program, or that you need a support group, I do not believe that that is the truth. I do not have a support group in the flesh whatsoever, right? Now, this is important. This answers the question as to one of the many reasons why I quit the internet for multiple years. Again, while everybody was getting on the internet, I was getting off the internet. And I have people that I've known in my life that don't use Facebook because they're psychically sensitive. And when they get on Facebook, they pick up on that psychic noise. They literally, it's not that they hear thoughts, they sense thoughts. And I just described to you how I sense thoughts on the internet. And so there's a reason why I privated many, many videos that I totally stand behind in the past, because I didn't want people watching my channel. That's why I got rid of all playlists on my channel, in case you're curious, because I didn't want viewers. And in doing so, I hurt my channel. And then Google went in and deleted almost all my comments, which wasn't very nice, Google, YouTube. But just because of Google, YouTube, and their interference doesn't mean that I'm going to jump onto BitChute, Rumble, or Odyssey and deal with that darkness over there. Highly polluted websites. So whether it's an adult website or a fake news website that deals with fake conspiracies and the illusions of separation program, you need to understand that some of us that are truly spiritual people that want to rid ourselves of demons, not be led around by demons at certain websites, but rid ourselves of demons, we know in our heart why we stay away from certain websites. I don't know if I should be getting off Facebook right now. There's very little engagement with my work, so it's frustrating for people to not see my work unless they physically type in my name and look for my work. But I know that there's a reason why they've oppressed me. And instead of that letting the evil forces win, it's motivated me. It's toughened me up. It's made me realize that this fight, this spiritual fight, is real. And there are souls out there worth saving. So for me, I've got to, in some cases, put aspects of my health on the back burner and help others. But I am exercising. I am going to do, on a regular basis, walking at certain parks. Getting the word in and out, broadcast intoxication. So this is a very important section. One of the things we discovered early on with the internet was broadcast intoxication. This is essentially a recognition that is stimulating to broadcast to others, as well as receive broadcasts through various platforms, but especially on social media. In chapter 5, I discuss in detail how social media creates an intoxicating experience when you broadcast your status, your updates, your posts, your videos, your photos, or virtually anything. Like this intoxication is in part caused by the anticipation of a like, a comment, a follow, or a direct message to your post. The response by other people creates a social validation loop whereby there is a dopamine elevation from the social validation. And as I said before, there is a reason why we do what we do that is based in rationale, even if it becomes out of balance with the internet. We're seeking our true family if we don't have family, like I don't have supportive family. And so we're seeking to help others and communicate with others in a day and age in which the outside in our communities, for the most part, is very unsafe. The murder rates where I live now in America are out of control, and there's plenty of cops. And so there's a reason I'm online. But by being online, it comes with certain side effects. Whenever you go online to do anything, there are no markers for where you are and how long you might be there. In fact, there is a purposeful attempt to eliminate such markers, just as a casino removes clocks or windows to obscure time passage. Thinking about that song, Time Passages. There are a myriad of cross-links, backlinks, hypertext, live photo links, and clickbait, and feeds that take you down endless rabbit holes, which you have later emerging from your journey without a clue as to how this occurred. And so there are full-on days, folks, where I've been on Facebook all day long, on YouTube all day long. When I was off grid, I uploaded on YouTube full time. And by showing people where I lived, including hateful people that had it in for me, even people on the dark side that practice the dark arts, some of them have psychic abilities and they can project their consciousness into your space. And that doesn't feel very good when there is hate in their heart. Whereas if there's peace in their heart and love in their heart, that can be felt as well. So there's a positive side to the internet. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're not in loving, conscious times, despite what the New Agers would have you believe. See, there's a difference between genuine spiritual teachings and the modern day New Age movement that has a lot of mumbo jumbo, a lot of faked channeled disinformation. He mentioned the term infotainment, and I've been introducing the term to you for years, disinfotainment, because there's the dark side of conspiracy theory that I'm here to minister in the name of Jesus Christ against. The human factor, the internet as a digital drug. People sometimes want to know how the internet and digital screens can be addictive. After all, how can you get addicted to a screen behavior? Part of the reason for this question is that it evolves from the idea that addiction is about ingesting a substance and that it is the substance itself that creates the addiction through the body's dependence on it. The problem with this analysis is that it's wrong. This isn't how addiction really works. Yes, the body can be physiologically dependent on a substance, drugs, or alcohol, but if that is what solely created an addiction, then once people detox from the substance, the addiction is gone. However, that is not what typically happens. Addiction is the combination of many variables that involves learning, memory, emotions, social factors, physiology, behavior, and neurobiology. Often there are co-occurring psychiatric problems that contribute to an addiction, or the addiction may be a way to deal with emotional pain or negative circumstances. Somebody could be damaged by certain medications in which it blocks their dopamine. They might then become addicted to the internet in order to get that dopamine, or coffee, or sugar, or ice cream, things that boost dopamine. Or sexuality, they may become addicted to sexuality in order to get that dopamine rush. You know, this is not discussed in the alternative media because a lot of people, their income is reliant on as many asses in the seat. And because many of them are not on the spiritual path, they can handle millions of viewers talking about them, thinking about them. You can even argue that the demons are shielding them from psychic attack or protecting them, because they can just sit there and lie to millions and millions of people and not go crazy. Whereas some of us, we can't do that. We are only, some of us as souls, we are only allowed to speak the truth and not put out propaganda. Because the second we do, or the second that we do something wrong, right, there's instant karma. Whereas others, they don't seem to have that instant karma because they're on a different soul path. Chapter 5, examining the addictive nature of social media. You see, you can log off social media, but it'll tell you later on, hey, a so-and-so just made a post. You might want to check that out. Hey, there's some new comments out there, you know, on a post of yours. There's some new posts in that group of yours that you haven't been doing a long time. Come on, log back in. Join us. It's like that demon speaking through the tape in the movie Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. Join us. And so when you've been off Facebook for a while, even if you deactivate your page, you might still get notifications. And in what I experienced several times, when I deactivated my page, and I didn't deactivate it in a specific way, but in a general way, it literally reactivated itself. Yep. So social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn, and endless platforms. Social media has invaded almost every aspect of our lives, including shopping, politics, data collection, entertainment, influencing and marketing, news, and in some ways, social connection. Social media was initially created to connect people online. It has since morphed into including topics, interests, and being part of a local or wide friend network. I've lived in off-grid areas where people on the far right side that celebrated the death of innocent women and children used Facebook to literally control an entire community, to excommunicate people that they deemed to be leftists or snowflakes or anyone that disagreed with their homicidal rantings. And so I can see how instead of Facebook working to connect me with like-minded, freedom-loving off-gridders, it showed me how psychotic people had actually become since 2015 and 2016. Recognizing what makes you come back to social media and more. I am not posting to my main YouTube channel. The reason I'm not posting to my primary channel, OTBTV News, is because a lot of the people have been so damaged by the fake news, by their internet addictions, by the dark side, that they don't even want to leave YouTube and the addiction to their dopamine hit that they get specifically from YouTube. There must be some proprietary technology that they're using. It's amazing how TIs and people that think they're being gangstalked don't suspect Twitter, don't suspect YouTube, don't suspect Facebook, don't suspect their smartphone, but yet they're looking at the local police down the street. Oh yeah, they're behind it all. Not that all cops are great, but right, if they're really concerned about being targeted, get off your technology, get off Twitter, ditch your smartphone, then come back and talk a little bit more. But until you actually deal with those things and you cut out the things that clearly are admittedly targeting you with propaganda and fake conspiracy news trash, until you actually cut out the fat, you're not dealing with the issue. You're chasing phantoms in the night. And see, they don't want my info out there. That's why I'm going to have 5 views on this YouTube video. If you want to help me grow my new YouTube channel, subscribe to it, OTBTV 2.2, and leave comments. Don't come and just drop a bunch of comments on my Facebook. If you want to help my new channel grow, leave comments on this video in a couple hours when it's uploaded. The risk of selfies. Taking photos of oneself, selfies, and posting them on social media is a very popular behavior among teens and young adults, but it may be practiced by younger children and adults as well. In extreme cases, they can lead almost to obsessions. There have been numerous instances where injuries and deaths have occurred in the process of trying to take the best and most exciting selfie possible. Have you heard of McCaffrey? He was the guy that made the antivirus program. He was on the run from a suspected murder, and he went to some country in Latin America, and a journalist came and visited him and snapped a photo of him. Okay, and as brilliant as he was, he didn't realize that the photo gave out his location from that selfie. There's a documentary I saw about this. There's also a book called The Art of Invisibility, which I've skimmed through, but I still need to read it. But it's time for it to go back to the library. I think it's time for me to take some valerian root, folks. I need to come down a notch. But don't have the money, honey, for the cannabis, as great as cannabis is. That's also part of my digital detox, dopamine reset, is stepping back from coffee, refined sugar, cannabinoids, synthetic cannabinoids, other things. So if you're gonna put out a certain photo from your cell phone and your location is on, then you need to take a snapshot. So it's like Windows, letter key, Shift and S for a screenshot. If only I had the screenshot option back in the day when I was getting seriously harassed on the internet, because it's important that people know what I went through back in the day. But that's in the past. But I've learned from my mistakes. Anything and everything that comes in from this point on will be documented. But it's been so light, folks, compared to what I went through when I was off grid. It's almost as if people truly hated me for going off grid, or thought, you don't deserve to live off grid. We should be off grid. What are you doing off grid? Real sad. The other aspect of selfies is that, it's said that the Native Americans didn't want their picture taken. So here we are putting our pictures online, putting our videos online. And as I said earlier, there's an energetic connection that people can have with that person online. And so if that person's thinking hateful thoughts about that person, staring into the eyes for hours of that person, if the other person is a sensitive or an empath or tells people they're an empath, people might manipulate that person even more. It's like Skeletor in He-Man, the movie, came out in 1986, where he's got, Sophia, or like the goddess type character in the movie. And he's like, oh, you're so sensitive. Oh, can you feel this? You know what I mean? Can you feel this? Human beings are like that too. They'll act like they're not into the occult or the dark arts. They act like they support Jesus Christ or they're Christians, yet they dabble in black magic, trying to tamper with the energy field of other human beings that did nothing to them. Black magic, the dark arts, using social media, with, by the way, the help of the big tech companies themselves that are not properly moderating these forums. So though they'll censor conspiracy truths, they'll allow and promote conspiracy trash. Let's move on. Seeing why social media can be counter-social. As I said, Facebook is where relationships come to die. In this section, I am not using the term counter-social in a traditional psychiatric sense, I'm saying that social media communication may run contrary to facilitating intimate connections. Clearly, social media is a form of communication, but my argument is that it doesn't seem to live up to its name, as if it is only a sort of social. There have been many reports of individuals who have disconnected their use of social media and reported a feeling of relief. So it isn't just about propaganda. It isn't just about the content on the internet. It's how people are affected energetically. Broadcast intoxication on social media. Social media use carries with it many potential negatives, but the largest by far is how quickly we become addicted to intoxicating effects of constantly posting and sharing our lives online. And I've actually, since I've returned, been uploading many recordings, but there's actually very little engagement with that content. So maybe I need to pull back from the internet, but I have so much energy, and I got nobody in my life to talk to. I've got nobody, folks, in my life to talk to. What is a brother to do? I'm still going to try to write a book, but I got to be on the computer in order to write that book. And so I plan to use discipline in the future with how many hours I spend every day working on that, because one can become burnt out. Social relationships ideally promote not filtering out what we do through how others will react and rate our experiences. This further disconnects us from ourselves and prevents us from experiencing our lives in the present moment. Without the drive to photograph, video, and post our lives, it is difficult to be fully present in our experiences when we are evaluating how others will react to them. And so it can be very difficult when you're putting yourself out there and you're trying to help people, and people respond with negativity, with hate. Cyberbullying, okay? So at one point, there was way more interference that I was dealing with on VHX.TV and my private platforms than supportive viewers. And what that does is creates a separation between the content creator and the audience when the individual straight up looking for entertainment and dopamine hits fail to have compassion for the person that they're watching. And there could also be people that have hate in their heart, racism in their heart, but they're still addicted to watching certain content creators. But they won't admit to themselves that they have racism in their heart while they have racism. So it's like, what's the point of even watching me? What's the point of even watching certain individuals, right? If you have this Nazi ideology, it just makes no sense. Unless, of course, you're a hypocrite. Because if you really thought that I was inferior, why would you want all these podcasts? Think, McFly, think. Think, McFly, think. And so by being online and having crazy ass people watch you, you could pick up on that crazy energy. And if you have a matching picture with one of these individuals, I don't subscribe to the idea of mental illness, but spiritual warfare, yes, absolutely. So if you're under a certain type of spiritual attack, or if there's something wrong with you morally, if you have like a demonic option open up where you're letting demons in and you're connecting with somebody else that has demonic energies online, it can be very problematic for you. Cyber stalking and trolling. It's a common activity. There are estimates that upwards of 50% of the demographic and identifying information present online is a lie. And our original research found that these numbers to be consistent with the 17,000 people were surveyed. You know, the 9/11 truth movement is now dead, right? And so the vast majority of the people in the truth movement want to blame the Jews or want to repeat that story about the dancing Israelis instead of actually talk about how 9/11 was used to kill millions of Afghanis and Iraqis, which is like, you know, meat and potatoes content. It's meat and potatoes content to talk about how 9/11 was used to murder millions of people. So you're a fucking hypocrite if you think you know shit about 9/11 truth, but yet you don't care about those people. It's like, think, McFly, think. Who's really affected by the 9/11 lie? Immigrants, innocent Muslims, right? So there are people out there that think that they're in a truth movement. They don't know the first thing about truth. You think this is like an accident? It's all been by design. All been by design. ChatGPT and the worm ChatGPT made for hackers and people engaged in phishing, in many ways is there as a hate tool, a propaganda tool. People think it's woke, whereas when prompted properly, ChatGPT gives specific instructions how to torture certain people, how to target certain religious institutions, right? You think that's just an accident? Am I to believe that's just an accident that ChatGPT puts out disinformation, right? And then it tries to cover it up. The endless stream of binge watching TV and online entertainment in a separate 3-hour recording, which I will upload later. So if you're not already over at alexansary.substack.com, I recommend that you subscribe to that and you'll get all my info. And I ask that you like, comment, and comment on the subsequent new YouTube channel so it will rank better, because my best of clips and videos, right, you can't find on the internet unless you know exactly where to go and click. So we'll cover that in another recording. But my recording has to do with what I've observed about the dark things, the propaganda, the obsession with serial killers, the obsession with Adolf Hitler, the documentaries about Adolf Hitler on Tubi that are neutral. Hitler's career, what a great guy. What a great guy, huh? There literally is an overabundance of Hitler documentaries that don't really expose Hitler and his role in the New World Order, make him look like, you know, someone that accomplished a lot of things. So you could be literally a fan of Adolf Hitler and sit there and mentally masturbate to documentary after documentary autoplaying about Adolf Hitler. And so even though they might cover Adolf Hitler and the occult, that information actually gives people ideas. And in the modern day and age, the Nazi occult energy is alive and well. And if you don't know that, you are not paying attention. Somebody messaged me the other day and said, Alex, I want to hear about your opinions on how the races are divided. Sure sounds Marxist to me. I said, more like Nazism. She's like, that's the first time I've heard that. I'm sorry, what? You have never heard of Nazism? You've never heard of Nazism in the modern day and age? Lady, you are either in denial, you are not paying attention, or you are being manipulated by dark forces, because Nazism is all over this planet. Nazism has been involved in the occupations of Afghanistan and Iraq. Nazism has been in the hearts of some of the NATO troops and US troops and Australian troops and UK troops that straight up murdered innocent men, women, and children. Somebody that doesn't realize that that's not Marxist, but that's Nazism, isn't paying attention and isn't working with a full deck of cards. And so they got us away from analog TV, folks, and they got us onto digital. And a lot of things changed once we went on to the digital spectrum. You know, back in the day, they would talk about the frame rate, where they would insert one frame in a 30 frame per second or a 60 frame per second reel, in which they would pop up a Coca-Cola image, or they would pop up a popcorn image. Now, in the digital spectrum, there's probably a wide range of mind control going on that you're not hearing from today's conspiracy theorists. They're not talking about mind control on YouTube unless they're pointing at the left. They won't talk about the negative dark influence that comes from far-right fight conspiracy trash that's all over streaming video content. Many people that write about psychic self-defense don't talk about the entities that may come out in and out of these screens, especially if people are attracting demons. However, you can find many movies now on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Tubi to where they are showing horror film scenes where there are demons and Baphomet with, you know, horned entities literally attacking people through the screen. And so it's normal to watch a movie about that. Oh, it's just fiction. But in reality, I've been talking about that for years, and I have been attacked by maniacs online that attempted to use black magic against me by attempting to curse me, literally, and showing a video of me in which I'm talking about entities coming in and out of the screen. You know what happened, right? The entities that I was exposing attempted to harm me through this individual. And so I put my faith in Christ. I put my faith in the true God. I don't make cannabis my God. I don't make Facebook my God. I don't make YouTube my God. I don't make drugs and alcohol my God. I don't make sex my God. But in the past, I put those things before God. And so I know that I made certain mistakes in this world where I did not go fully 110% on the spiritual path. So anybody out there that aspires to be someone like me or to create their own content and not just be some anonymous individual in the comment sections, they need to be on the spiritual path if you're going to be pushing back against the dark forces. Yeah, so there's the advent of user-friendly smart TVs and aftermarket devices like Apple TV and Amazon's Fire Sticks to access streaming apps and alternative program sources. It's been a game changer. All this content's for free, by the way. And by the way, when you get on Tubi and you look at the conspiracy theory section, even though they crack down on conspiracies and people talking about against racism to all groups, which I do, right? Well, we find ourselves shadow banned. There's all types of fake conspiracy trash on Tubi. Majestic, Above Majestic, the Alien Program, showing you a reptilian, showing you QAnon folks, from Justin Sather to David Wilcock, to people that knowingly have lied to you over and over and over again. David Wilcock, by the way, promoting love and light, blue avian aliens that allegedly are our friends. The controllers love that stuff. Oh, look at you, trying to lead people in the direction of alien worship. Oh, you get to get on TV, yeah. How about Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, right? Trying to convince us that these alien overlords are our gods and taking us away from the true Christ consciousness. People ought to wake up and realize that they're being led around, right, by a carrot on a string. A binge is the repeated and unconscious use of something that may have a detrimental effect on you. You often hear about binge eating, where a person eats compulsively, often to a point of hurting themselves. The same might be applied to binge TV watching. The ability to turn on your TV and stream 10 episodes of an already released season can be very appealing, but at best negatively impacting our worst. The main negative impact being loss of sleep and not getting other things done. You can't binge without something powerful shutting down your consciousness, judgment, and awareness. Only potent and addictive substances or activities can accomplish this. Missing your life while being entertained, the ease of the binge. And so, when there was the COVID situation, a lot of people jumped not on just streaming video content, but on Zoom. Because a lot of these individuals have never really suffered like me without family or friends. They've never really lived off the grid for months on end with their car broken down, hoping some stranger who may not even have their best interests at heart gives them a jump or gives them a ride so that they can get food. And so a lot of weak-minded people became internet addicts in recent years, understanding the allure of endless choice. Endless choice. You get on Tubi and it's a never-ending stream of content. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. And as people become more mentally ill through the isolation, through the internet addiction, right? Guess what they offer us in return, right? In response to that, antidepressants. Schizophrenia medication, even for those that aren't schizophrenic, that have insomnia from too much internet use. From psychic attack, which the modern medical model does not recognize. Even if you have self-described Christians, Muslims, and Jews in psychiatric positions, they do not recognize spiritual attack. But churches do, and mosques do, even though mainstream Christians and mainstream Jews and mainstream Muslims and mainstream New Agers and mainstream people into Wicca, they don't really look at the reality of how their psyche is penetrated by these unclean, evil spirits. Okay, seeing the influence of social media. Looking at other problems of watching TV all the time. Intensity is addictive. TV acts as your social companion. One form of screen use is almost as good as another. When someone stops using heavy internet and video game use, it's not unusual for them to switch to watching huge amounts of TV. So that's what I did in 2020 without realizing what I was doing. I thought, hey, just get away from the internet, right? Delist your videos, right? And you'll get away from those negative energies. Not if you're going to go over to Tubi and watch their dystopian movies. That will not help prepare you for the future, but scare the living daylights out of you. And if you're brought to your knees in fear, and you're brought to your knees in a state of powerlessness, who knows what you're willing to do for a bite to eat, to feel safe again. So in many ways, we are being manipulated by these movies. And they also put certain things in movies, also known as predictive programming. So when certain things manifest in the world, you're thinking, well, this is like one of those things I saw in a movie, right? And somehow by it being put into a movie and it being portrayed as fiction, when it really happens in the real world, they won't realize that it's real, that it's really happening, that it's not just a movie, folks, that it's not just a movie. The other thing is, when Alex Ansary was weaker, when he smoked cannabis all morning, all afternoon, all night, smoked cigarettes, cried on occasion, went off in certain directions, all types of people were being drawn to my direction. Who's here now in the audience? There are 0 people watching at the moment that I'm speaking. It's not just shadow banning, folks. It's the fact that people tune in, they hear what I'm saying, they're like, oh my God, this is so intense, I gotta get out of here. But if I'm weaker, and I'm having a mental breakdown, and all of a sudden there's thousands of people, go Alex, go, go. You see, on social media, the empathy factor does not exist. I can sit out there and put out a video about the need to prepare and encourage people to participate in the comment section to provide their recommendations on what they think somebody should get for about $1,000 as far as preparedness. But the fact of the matter is, most people don't give a damn about others. They just care about their own dopamine hit. They just care about their own entertainment. And so with social media, there is a lack of empathy. Even though you have the crying emoji and the angry emoji and the laughing emoji, are these people really laughing or are they crying? Or are they just sitting there like, it's insincere to act like you're crying or giving someone a hug when you're not even caring about what happens to those individuals, whether they live or whether they die. And so social media is conditioning us to be fake individuals with our emojis. And when you call this out, people get defensive, but they don't want to take accountability for what these corrupt websites are doing. And I can tell you for many, many years, Facebook has been promoting disinformation and has been leading people into racial traps, not just in America, but in Myanmar, in India. Read the articles if you care about people around the world. And look how innocent ethnic people have been massacred as a result of Facebook disinformation. And so there's a reason why they are firing at Twitter and getting rid of possibly at Google and YouTube, but especially at Facebook, content moderators, because they're setting the stage for these platforms to be used to abuse others. Exploring video games and video game addiction. You know, I don't agree with various ways in which my mother raised me as a child. We'll talk about that another time. However, she did keep me away from video games and from excess television viewing. And I don't understand why people are so interested in these Call of Duty violent shoot 'em up games, especially individuals that think that they're a part of the truth movement or wanting to know what's really going on in society. Like, there are ways in which people can learn how to become proficient with the gun with some of these technologies. There's also certain Chinese companies that have made certain games free or very cheap that people are playing live on the internet with others, and they're not aware that there could be data harvested from those gaming players. There's also stories about people that have killed themselves after being attacked. And because we have that psychic link to other individuals on the internet, some people might literally become sick when people in the gaming world attack them, shoot them literally in the game, kill them in the game. And then you have the phenomena of swatting, the issue in which people call and misuse the police services and they say that such and such did such and such. And so because they're playing a video game, they end up with the police kicking in their door, thinking that they're saving somebody from a murder-suicide situation or a hostage situation when all that person was doing was playing a video game. So there's a dopamine addiction that obviously goes with this, depending on video games for identity. If you are a family member or friend of a gaming addict, then you must be able to appreciate how much a video game means to the addict. And they won't admit how much time they spend on the games. Just like we may not admit to ourselves how much time we're on Facebook or on YouTube chasing that dopamine. By the way, have you ever heard of dopamine powder that comes out of India? I actually came across something called dopamine powder. I didn't really feel much from it. But exercise, folks, exercise. That releases natural endorphins. There's also serotonin. There's also some other neurotransmitters. I'm also taking GABA, which is supposed to help with relaxation and sleep. I have enjoyed Tetris in the past. Ractor on the Tandy 1000 back in the day. I mean, we're talking late 80s, folks. As a child, I also played the Indiana Jones game. I also played the Oregon Trail game. But fortunately, these habits did not become a part of my adulthood. I tried playing Grand Theft Auto for a few days, maybe in 2003. I remember actually paying for that game for $50. Went out to the Clackamas Town Center Mall right outside of Portland, Oregon, and picked it up. And, you know, I realized to a certain point, dude, unless you're at a certain skill, you're not going to beat this level. And so instead of just fight it, I got to beat this. Higher consciousness stepped in. It's like, this is not worth your time. This game is garbage because it's not letting you progress. If only that gnosis was applied to the rest of our lives when people are playing games with us, or the world's trying to trap us into a game simulation in which we can't really progress unless like our mind becomes one with the machine. Like, you know, some people, folks, are just straight going to take the microchip. And in a way, haven't they already? Aren't we already experiencing transhumanism? And if you don't know what transhumanism is, you know, regardless of your feelings on Tom Horn of Skywatch TV, go to my YouTube channel, Outside the Box 2.2, and watch that full interview with Tom Horn. Violence in video games is a very controversial topic and the focus of significant research and debate in the last few decades. Although there was some debate within the behavioral health and psychiatric community regarding video game violence, numerous respected organizations have commissioned white papers and studies on the subject. Desensitization to violence, the building of skills in violence. And so you'll notice, like, you know, young children will be introduced to certain types of weapons, certain ways of harming people. Martial arts should be learned in person, right? And you should be learning spiritual discipline, learning to meditate, and learning to get in touch with your internal energy. With Mortal Kombat, with Street Fighter 2, you're not learning martial arts. You're just sitting here. And so whether it's this or whether it's this on Facebook, what the word that comes to me is insectoid consciousness. Instead of humanoid consciousness, we are actually being programmed to insectoid consciousness. And so, you know, I remember trying to reach out to some people in a telepathy group and saying, I would rather talk using my throat chakra than just type back and forth. But people didn't want to talk to me when I was reaching out for spiritual assistance or a psychic reading. Then I would say that it's a mistake to talk with people that claim that they're psychic on the internet, when in fact, they may not be psychic or they may not be on the side of the light. And I did get, by the way, a few free psychic readings, and most of what was told to me was absolutely false. The risks of online shopping, gambling, and stock trading. Even I got on the bandwagon and invested in not so much penny stocks, but these cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin. And for a while, I was really wanting to get involved in XRP, making my own predictions that XRP would go up, up, and away. And in the end, those smaller cryptocurrencies that I invested in, I lost out in it. It was a complete waste of time. Right? It's one thing if you're truly psychic and you're tapped in and you have the resources and you get into Bitcoin at the right time. But for those that don't have those skills, don't have that intuition, and aren't being given the right information because they're listening to Chris Green from AMTV or some other individuals out there in the world. And so cryptocurrency, folks, is just another version of trying to ride the stock market and involve yourself in online gambling. Yes, your computer can get sick with a virus and more. Malware is simply a group of bots and software applications that either take information from your machine or put information into your machine. The most common use for malware is for marketing and business, to get information about you and your device that can be used either to sell you something or to sell your name and information to someone else. What I've noticed is that through my conversations, private conversations, and private podcasts, on the Windows Start app, so if you have a Windows 11 computer, you should know what I'm talking about. On the Windows Start app, the things that I talk about, the things that I type about end up in the Start app. I literally can put into a video, this video is for Muslims, white people, black people, Hispanic people, wake the fuck up. And literally, an article says Mexican people, white people, black people, blah, blah, blah. You must prepare for war. It's like, did a bot just write that? And in some of the articles that I've clicked on in the past, I don't know if this is still going on, because I don't always read every word or line in it, and would they really tell us if a bot wrote it? But there are times where they straight up admitted that bots wrote the news. And so we now live in a dystopian reality to where custom tailored disinformation can hit your computer and attempt to brainwash you specifically, because that's what AI is capable of. Now, did Alex Jones tell you that? Did brother David Icke tell you that? Did George Norrie tell you that? Did a single guest on Coast to Coast AM tell you that? Folks, there's a reason hardly any of you have the intelligence to listen to my broadcasts. There's a reason why there's only 10 views on this. There should be 100,000 views on this video. But a man like me who's before his time is going to be held back by the internet and the vast majority of the people that come across my content, unless they already are viewers. But like random people, they're going to hear me and go, that guy is crazy. That guy is crazy. He needs medication. No, I don't need medication. And medication is poison. CBD, THC, different story. Should be legal at the federal level. Should be in vending machines across the board. You want to have a little identity thing for children? Fine. Do it. But you know what? There's worse things. There's worse things that kids are allowed to get into. Free pornography, free violent video games. They can buy weapons online and get those in the mail. There's plenty of things that kids do, eating candy all day, eating soda, drinking soda, also known as pop, right? CBD, THC is not the most toxic things for, say, a young person to access. Shopping online, the acceptable addiction. You know the problem with Amazon? It takes out the pleasure of the hunter foraging. The hunting and the foraging for the things that we need. And so a lot of people just click on Amazon without actually being a hunter or a forager. And so you have people with health problems. You have people with Amazon addictions. Because I understand the inconvenience with COVID-19, but we're already out of the lockdowns. There are no major stories of viruses. I better watch what I say, otherwise this video will just stop. Let me just say this, the whole mask thing. Why are people still doing that while walking down the street when the crisis is over? And they moved us from that to the war in Ukraine, and they're moving us from the war in Ukraine to the Israel-Hamas crisis, and they're moving us from the Hamas-Israel crisis to anti-Themism, the hatred of certain ethnic bloodlines, even if they're Christian and American-born. It's about their ancestry. And if you still don't know what anti-Themism, not to be confused with anti-Semitism, A, you're not paying attention. B, you haven't watched my recent videos. Have you? Or despite my best efforts, to wake your ass up, the info just didn't stick in. I also made a video saying there's nobody out there that's messaged me and said, Alex, you helped me overcome white supremacy, black supremacy, Islamic supremacy, Hispanic supremacy, Chinese supremacy, or militancy. And that would be great to hear from a Chinese person that is not in support of the CCP from China. Never, ever happened. People have contacted me with regards to flat earth, preparedness, Costia County, wanting to know where else I've been, solar flares. Very little people talk to me about World War III in China. Very, very little. MGTOW, right? The unseen forces, other topics. But when it comes to rising above hate in one's heart, right? Crickets, crickets. And even after I make a podcast of it, not only does nobody like it, nobody comments, making my point right. There's many, many people with hatred that come across my content, and they don't have the spiritual calling to say, yeah, what you're saying is right on. There is too much hate. And it's not just anti-white racism that is manufactured and coming from the mainstream with headlines like, is it time to rob white people? It's hatred across the board. And it's almost as if I incarnated or, came into being in a day and age in which it seems that only I can see. Run around with these fools. I pity the fool. They're playing out some role from They Live, the movie, going, I've got one that can see. Then I'm the one that gets the hate for trying to help others come out of their hate. Getting a hit of dopamine. And by the way, we have no comments on this live stream. We've had a few people pop in, they stay for a few minutes, then they bail. They don't comment. They don't say anything. If anything, I get a like, as if I really need that dopamine like, but my real attempt to communicate with people, even if it's typing, right? Nothing there. And we are back to finish our discussion and reading of this book, Overcoming Internet Addiction. And I'm actually going to take my own advice. I'm going to work on taking a few days off from uploading content. As you know, there's very few likes on my videos, very low engagement on my new YouTube channel, almost zero engagement on my Substack. So I think that it's a good time to take a break. Very few donations are coming in. So this would be a time for me to pull back as we go into a new moon, and I will try to focus on my writing. But it was very important for my own mind, body, and spirit health for me to return to the internet after multiple years of stepping back. Again, I talked about broadcast intoxication. People get that hit of dopamine from uploading themselves, that hit of dopamine from getting likes. I want to step back from that and focus on some other things. So we will continue here. Chapter 9, Combining Addictions, the Power of Porn and the Internet. I don't think that I've gotten into this yet. The history of the relationship between porn and technology is long and intertwined. From the earliest days when humans depicted sexual images on cave walls to the modern use of the internet, technology and sex have always coexisted. The use of technology to record, express, and distribute sexual depictions and behavior seems to be part of human sexuality, and some of these technologies have helped facilitate addictive and compulsive uses of porn. In 2017, Pornhub, the world's largest porn website, which owns a crap ton of other porn sites, they're also owned by the MindGeek Corporation. They described having 81 million visits per day, and that number is likely higher today. The fact during the 2020 COVID pandemic, online porn use spiked even higher. That includes women. In 2017 to 2018, Pornhub reported 25 billion porn site searches. So, next section, understanding why pornography is so appealing. Then I'll give a few statements. To understand why it's so appealing, it's important to understand the history of porn and how it has frequently been integrated with technology. Some depictions of pornography date back over 25,000 years. Yeah, you know what they don't articulate? How the pornography that was exposed or articulated or drawn many years ago is not at all like the pornography that is being depicted now. So the author is approaching this from a non-judgmental perspective. However, I have some words regarding this. The internet allows the best of everything for the consumption and viewing of pornography, privacy, interactivity, novelty, anonymity, endless choice, and ease of access. And so it plays into the addiction. And of course, there's going to be the dopamine rush. Obviously, people are going to be into it. Also gets into sexting, dating and hookup sites. I did think about putting together a dating profile, but I don't really sense much higher consciousness within this region of North America that I'm in. But as far as porn, I'm going to explain this. A lot of people don't understand that, as I said in the earlier recording, there are these entities and spiritual forces of the dark side that do operate within these computers and these smartphones. And so when one is pleasuring themselves to these adult websites, as far as I'm concerned, they're cording themselves up with certain entities. Same thing with listening to certain talk shows that are out there that scare the living daylights out of their audience. And so hardcore lust and hardcore fear and things that lead people towards racism, Nazism, and rage, even black supremacy, these things link people up to negative entities that like to use the human beings as hosts. So that's the first thing that I want to say. From a more critical perspective of pornography, as I said before, I've seen things that have disgusted me so greatly that as I became more spiritual and became closer to Christ, I realized that there was no longer any leeway for me to consume that content whatsoever. No exception. Whereas in the past, I thought it was okay. And so, there are comic books out there that depict the human trafficking of women from U.S. soil into China and using Chinese and African troops. Just so you know, there's also another video that I saw that depicts an asteroid strike and a man and woman get into a car, and then it shows 3 months later and they're foraging for food in some rural area, no longer dressed clean. And so this video is basically glamorizing the collapse, and basically a MAGA, Trump-supporting type patriot guy with a gun catches them stealing his food and basically makes the woman pleasure him. And so there is a grotesque amount of pornography that depicts men taking advantage of women in collapse type uniforms or situations where they're wearing basically the police state uniforms. And in horror films and in porn films, you also see occultic symbols either on the wall or tattooed on the porn actress. And as I said, there's a lot of people out there that criticize porn, but they don't actually describe at all what's in porn because they don't have the gusto, they don't have the bravery. They're too ashamed, really, to even admit that they even witnessed it. So there's plenty of things that I would say that are in modern day pornography that really have no place in pornography, that are really about promoting human trafficking, promoting murder. And as far as I'm concerned, certain content should be illegal. Now, in another video, I will talk about how we can reform the criminal justice system, because the current system is barbaric. It actually creates more criminals, and it doesn't really rehabilitate. And a lot of people cheer on the idea of people getting raped in prison. And this is all reflective of the sick satanic society that we're really living in. Even though there's many people that act like they're Christian and act like, they care about their own ethnicity and their own kind, when in reality, they have failed to show me that they are good people and that they even care about their own people, despite their rhetoric. So I can go on, and I did record a longer recording about this. I really honestly don't know if my audience is ready for it. You would have to actually go out of your way to contact me and say, Alex, tell us everything you know. So far, that's not happening. So maybe I'm not actually going to share with you how deep the darkness actually goes. But providing a quick summary, there is a sharp rise in Nephilim, fallen angel porn. Right? So you might get curious when you're watching pornography and go, you know what? I'm sick of seeing human beings. Let me look at some cartoons. Well, folks, they're pushing hardcore alien sex. That's how I found that stuff. Hashtag Hente, hashtag 3D. And so anytime you go to that, you're not seeing normal human beings have sex. It's giants with small earth women. And I'm here to tell you there's nothing normal and there's nothing sane about a man or a woman that watches that content. Okay, regular porn is one thing. I get it. Folks, I get it. But this stuff that deals with the fallen angel stuff, is sick and demented. And there is an article from Psychology Today that downplays the seriousness of this and the sharp increase in women that are into this. So as I discussed in my Dark Feminine Rising, even though we deal with a lot of beautiful women with vaginas and breasts, their beauty in today's world is very much on the external. On the internal, there's a lot of gunk there. And out of the women that I fornicated with, I can only think of maybe one that actually cares about my true ancestry, surviving and overcoming genocide. Whereas the rest of the people that I lay down with, absolutely not. They do not care about my ancestry, the bombing of my father's homeland. They care more about the super soldier. They care more about fake Christians that act like they're Christians, but they're really doing nothing to oppose the New World Order, right? So I repent of my sins in the name of Jesus Christ for my past behaviors. And I believe that I am saying the things that no other man is saying. And so my content is not strictly conspiracy theory. It goes way beyond that into Gnostic thought, different versions of understandings of Christianity, the true Christ, the solar flares, preparedness without the right-wing psyops, and going beyond racism or the illusions of separation, while also calling out the anti-white racism that does exist. So I'm a man like no other. That's why certain people have tried to attack me and berate me, using the internet to attack me, in some cases with their mind, with their comments, with their harassment. And so the new Alex Ansary isn't going to put up with that anymore, is not going to stop creating content. And so there's going to be times in which I step back from the internet for days on end to get back into my Zen space and get back to my writing, work on a book. Because when I'm gone, it could be in a few years, it could be in 10 years from now. But when I'm gone, I want people to know what I said, and it needs to be in book format, right? Because there's a big disconnect with social media, because a lot of people that watch me on social media do not have empathy. But on the bright side, I want to say thank you to those of you that have watched my recent videos, that have shown me empathy and understanding, for standing up and asserting myself as a human being whose life matters, just like yours and the person next to you, your daughter, your wife, so on and so forth. Right. So webcams, toys, virtual reality, and robot sex. A lot of this stuff I talked about for years, but I do not support it. I do not support the idea of robot sex. And I've speculated for years about maybe men might be duped in the future by having sex with robots, and their sperm could be harvested from maybe a hybrid program. And I think if they do kidnap women in the future from this country, it's not just going to be about the Chinese, the Russians, the Saudis, the Iranians, the North Koreans. They're probably going to be experimenting with some hybrid programs. So isn't it interesting that Elon Musk, that talks about his off-world aspirations, how he is in bed with China and the far right? Can you hear me now? McFly, are you learning anything from me? Leave a comment down below. The psychology, biology, and legal repercussions of online sexuality, fetishes. So basically, people get such a strong dose of that stuff that they just keep getting more and more of it, crossing the line into illegal content because the regular stuff doesn't work for them anymore. And the government has hosted illegal pornography. So has AOL, so has Instagram. And now AI has a whole plethora of this illegal content involving minors. And so people get so addicted to regular stuff, the regular stuff doesn't work for them anymore, and it's like heroin or some drug, they go for a higher dose. And so they end up entrapped by the system that actually will allow people to search for this content and find that content, and then they get busted. And so the system, in a way, the pornography system is set up to entrap them and get them in trouble. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Do you really understand what I'm saying to you? And this is how perverse it is. They allow, despite we have so many laws that restrict our freedom in this country, perverts have the freedom in this country to take the profile pictures of women on social media, to harvest their data, and to create deep fake porns of them being screwed in all positions, gangbang, this, that, and the other. They did it with Greta, who is the environmental activist, and that's perverted. They did it with Seven, the woman who was featured on the Stranger Things TV show. So these women were just minors a few years ago. And now it's being normalized for these women that were minors a few years ago or just 1 year ago to now be on these deep fake porn websites. And if women write about it, some of them have also been doxxed, and they have had it happen to them as well, and no one's stepping in. So these people that are applauding the police state are absolute hypocrites. They're also super hypocrites when they get mad if Donald Trump is arraigned, although they're not really going after Donald Trump. And anybody that believes that is a moron, right? The deep state is all about Trump, and I don't usually use words like the deep state because it's such a right-wing leaning term. But there is a professor by the name of Peter Dale Scott who did push back against U.S. imperialism and elements of the 9/11 lie, who has used the term deep state from a left-leaning anti-U.S. imperialistic stance many years ago, in case you did not know that. So the term deep state has been co-opted by the alt-right, which is still an appropriate term to use in today's day and age. Identifying the signs and symptoms of internet addiction or overuse. It creates behavioral changes. Symptoms being narrowing your life focus and limiting your real-time behaviors. And I would say it also creates a psychic linkage. So I don't know how much I got into this in the previous recording, but I did have a Facebook post or a Facebook group, and people were speculating about my death. And I was getting hits, and I was seeing them talk about me in my dreams. And I thought that was inappropriate for people to speculate about me dying. It also said Alex Ansary obituary when I looked myself up in the auto-suggest. And I find that to be quite frightening for the robot apocalypse of Google and YouTube to basically act like I am dead. And so there is a psychic connection between yourself and others. There's a reason why I don't play live role-playing video games. It's not just about Dungeons and Dragons. There's many games in which people fight with swords and practice decapitations and shooting monsters and maybe team up against one individual. Basically, when you're dealing with that, you can be dealing with psychic attacks. So I do not support online gaming addiction. We do not have this history in our DNA, in our ancestry. Okay, I don't care what your ancestry is. We do not have the consumption of hardcore digital pornography addiction in our ancestry, and we do not have any evidence of digital video game addiction, violent video game addiction in our ancestry either. And so there's a lot of people in today's day and age that make excuses. Oh, it's always been this way. We've always had pornography. You've had drawings of pornography. You haven't had high-tech, fast-moving, high-streaming pornography coming from these servers. And so there's a reason why you want to quit your Facebook account, although I've been using Facebook recently to reach out to people. Tonight, I think that I'm going to deactivate my Facebook page because I'm not really having the best engagement with people right now, and I'm losing a lot of sleep. And even when people comment on my Substack, like I even have these dreams, like I said, to where they're in my dreams. And because I'm such a sensitive, this is why folks like me have to take time away from the internet. Because in my father's ancestry, including my mother's, there's no history of internet use, including your ancestry, when you go back 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So we're actually now in a brave new world. People want to talk about transhumanism. Transhumanism is already happening, even if you didn't take the mark of the beast, the vaccine, or a microchip. It's that whole, oh, so-and-so just uploaded something. Oh, so-and-so just liked something. Oh, I got to get on this. Oh, I got to comment right away. Like, I want your comments, right? But a little goes a long way. No comments suck. But having a massive, massive amount of people watching me, like millions of people, I personally can't handle that invasive energy of all these minds looking at me, which is why I'm posting on a new YouTube channel with only 100 subscribers and posting podcasts and blogs over to alexansary.substack.com. But I get a bad feeling in general, like the eye of Sauron upon me, when I log in to my original channel. So it's not necessarily the humans. It's like something dark. But in the dark of winter, I am going to be logging back into my original OTBTV news channel and creating fresh playlists, bringing videos that were previously privated that get into China, Russia, the far right, the far left, Portland, Oregon, relationships without the MGTOW hashtag, which just brings in the wrong crowd. I don't even have those exact philosophies. I'm more of a deep philosopher on true gender equality. Without a man dominating a woman, and without a woman dominating a man, which is our cultural norms in this patriarchy. Because now a lot of women want to turn the table and they're wearing the pants. And in reality, most relationships, in my opinion, are not truly based in equality and love and teaching that child how to cope with the challenges that they're going to face when they grow up. I know that my mother sabotaged me through her abuse. My father sabotaged me through his abuse. I brought you in this world. I can take you out. So they actually worked in a very focused way to screw me up in the head, to traumatize me before others came and traumatized me, because they saw that I was already traumatized, showing emotion on camera, and they're thinking to themselves, look at this guy showing emotion. Let's mess with him so much so that he might even kill himself. This is how psychotic the internet has made people. It hasn't really helped us come together. It has linked us up to these grid-like systems, right? And so a lot of people are possessed. And if you haven't watched Muhammad on Way, for those of you that are open to a spiritual Sufi, Gnostic, mystic perspective, he talks a lot about the jinn. Just go to Sufism and Jinn on YouTube and you'll see what I mean. Anger issues. There is unlikely to be an issue with excessive internet and screen use unless notable increases occur in the amount of time spent online. There will always be significant increases, although they may occur gradually over a long period of time. I've dealt with anger issues as well. The addict may experience increased anger, aggression, and hostility related to any attempts to limit, remove, or control their internet or screen time. This is especially notable with video game and smartphones, where I've seen a significant amount of anger and family discord. This can also be part of a long-term cycle of parents removing technology out of frustration or concern, only to return it after the addict has had an angry outburst or threatens to harm themselves. So if I was involved in higher education, if I was a teacher at a grade school or a middle school, I would have a policy that everybody has to have a parity bag where you take your cell phone and you put it in the bag for people to think that they always have to have a cell phone on them next to their genitalia, looking at their social media, acting like at any moment we can have an emergency. We have to call mommy and daddy. I mean, seriously, do we always have to have a cordage to this thing in case there's an emergency? How many times do we have the guts to just leave this at home instead of taking it with us? And I have faced a lot of interference, so you know. I've received strange phone calls from people who I've never called. Hey, Alex, I'm coming over with my mom. It's Ava. Yeah, we're going to be there around 1. So somebody did something back in May to make it seem like I was going to meet a woman named Ava who left me a text and a voicemail. And I looked her up, and it's a real person. It wasn't a spam call. It was a real human being that was under the false impression that I was on my way to meet her. So I might be getting rid of this cell phone in the near future. Life withdrawal, depression. So from addiction to the internet, you have depression, anxiety, and you're going to be bombarded with a lot of negativity. Like right now, we have the situation in Gaza. We have the situation in Afghanistan, in Iraq. We have the situation with the U.S. and Iran potentially about to go to blows. So some people, in conjunction with listening to the wrong shows like Alex Jones or Ground Zero Radio, do what you want. But if people really want my opinion, I tell them to steer away from that content. Okay, and I think that my content is a lot more palatable to people that are on the genuine spiritual path, that don't want to be radicalized by far left or far right ideology. So I pray that many will come to the true Christ and pull back from their addiction to some of these individuals. Eye strain is a big, big deal. I suffered from eye strain, and that's why I have these blue light glasses. And now I always have these blue light glasses next to my EMF hat. I also have a homemade beanie with EMF protection on it. And I'm going to get the Blue Shield device, which is supposed to protect me from Wi-Fi. So circadian rhythm, right? We have a circadian rhythm in which we rise at a certain time and we go to sleep at a certain time, in line with the cycles of the sun, the daily cycles of the sun. And so when we're looking at the blue light, we can have insomnia from not going to sleep at the right time. We can have addiction issues, keep watching more, not just the dopamine chasing from the likes and hits and comments, but from the addiction to actually looking at the screen itself. Circadian rhythms are natural sleep and wake cycles that are also related to physical health. It's interesting to note that melatonin is a metabolic precursor to serotonin production. Serotonin and other precursors, such as L-tryptophan, are very involved with mood and, to some extent, sleep. Yes, there is such a thing as good sleep hygiene. Looking at behavioral issues when you're addicted to the internet, shortened attention span. I've noticed this a lot. One person said, you know, when I said that people don't even talk about Iraq and Afghanistan anymore, he's like, oh, Totally. Me and the people in London, we marched to the tune of 2 million. You mean in recent years, dude? Or when the media told you it was okay to march when Barack Obama was running for the presidency? No reply. So a lot of people don't have high intelligence that you talk to on the internet. They have short attention span. If you look over at my Substack page, you'll see someone posting in many of the threads by the name of Scott, and he has complete sentences, very good grammar, paragraph breaks in between his content. He is the only human being that is leaving comments of a intellectual nature on my Substack. And so I'd rather have a few quality human beings that can see through the left-right paradigm, that are true servants of Christ, that are not master manipulators, rather than have 20, 30, 40 people leaving comments that are irrelevant, with misspellings, incomplete sentences, and sometimes making no sense whatsoever. Decreased academic and work productivity. So like I said, there's a lot of people that are allowed to bring their cell phones to work. They'll sit there at the restaurants and be looking at their phone. They'll be sitting there in the car and looking at their phone. They'll be sitting there in class and looking at their phone. And it's not healthy. Warning signs of internet addiction, your spouse, friend, or loved ones. Lots of examples are given. You should already know by now what the warning signs are. Shopping, gambling, and investing. Yeah, I did invest some cryptocurrency, and all of that collapsed. Was not worth it. And it was when Bitcoin was rising again in 2021. So I'm not going to bother with that. This is Palo Santo, by the way. So as far as spiritual protection, there is some frankincense and myrrh. Those are both approved in the Bible. Sage is not, so I stopped using sage. And this is Palo Santo. It has a beautiful smell and scent to it. It's not overwhelming or overbearing like sage can be. But I'm not here to say that sage doesn't work entirely, right? So as you pull back from addiction, whether it be from drugs and alcohol or the internet, pornography, you really need a spiritual practice. You do not need a counselor, a therapist, in my opinion, in many cases, or medication or a support group. Like I said, with pornography, for me, it was truly understanding that it was satanic and promoting rape, human trafficking, kidnapping women, even outside the United States, and basically numbing people to this reality and conditioning young people to accept it and maybe even take part in it. So now that I know it's truly evil and I'm at war with the devil of this world with my own flaming sword, so to speak, and I'm committed to this at the soul level, to continuing to slice back against the dark realms of this world even after I am no longer in the flesh. And so it's because of that dedication that I have that I'm able to quit something that normally people have a hard time quitting cold turkey. The vast majority of the literature that I've read regarding it says that most humans do not succeed at cold turkey, and I've succeeded at many things cold turkey. Did I tell you already that I got rid of the TV in the area in which I sleep? I got in the habit of watching streaming video content. I think we already covered that section. And I watched a lot of movies, even a lot of Hitler documentaries, and I saw that a lot of it was crap. So it's about a digital detox. I mentioned this at the beginning. A digital detox is when you basically take a break from the internet, which I'm going to do for a few days after this recording and after I upload. Sometimes it's necessary to limit access to an addictive behavior. Unlike most addictive substances and behaviors, screens are now so easily accessible that you may need to limit certain content and devices. To treat an addiction, patients need to have some period of at least a partial detox. This is also an author that thinks that you need to get inpatient treatment for internet addiction. I think, again, that's overstepping it. People that need inpatient have serious, serious problems. Defining a digital detox. It is the abstinence, or in some cases, reduction of a substance or behavior. It results in a detoxification from the overuse of that substance or behavior. In this case, I'm talking about screens. A detox from the internet and screens is different from a detox from drugs and alcohol in that users experience little physiological dependence and withdrawal. They experience some withdrawal symptoms, but these are typically seen in the form of psychological adjustment to reduced dopamine and to the deregulation of the brain's reward system. And by the way, I came across something, I don't know if any of you have experimented with it, but it's a East Indian herb that is supposed to increase your dopamine. I did try some several years ago. I didn't really feel anything from it. And so I haven't continued to take it. But if any of you know what I'm talking about and have had positive experiences with this dopamine powder, feel free to let me know. Monitoring and limiting your time and content on screens. Sometimes people decide to create a dosing schedule where they allow a more moderate amount of time online and on their devices. Now for me, I have an addictive nature. And so there are days, even recently, where I've spent all day long on YouTube uploading, all day long on Facebook waiting for likes and comments. I'm not totally getting down on myself because I do want to build my online tribe. But I've worked really, really, really hard in the last month. And I only have 100 subscribers on my new channel and only have about 96 subscribers. Some have unsubscribed because I'm telling it like it is. And a lot of people would like a weaker Alex Ansary who's able to manipulate and walk on, as opposed to the new Alex Ansary that is calling out all the evil that I see in all the ethnicities, calling out the various multiple racial supremacy programs from anti-white to anti-black to the super program of anti-Afghani and anti-Iraqi and anti-Middle Eastern and anti-Islamic and anti-Christian. That's right. So I'm calling out all these things, and that's going to be too intense for the average human being to sit through. Just want to thank my mom out there for being open enough, even though we're not talking, being open enough mind-wise to hear out what her son is saying. That's more than I can say about my father and his family. But I'll tell you folks, that recent video that I did calling out the people that have killed their kind, I sent that to 10, 15 relatives, and only Tamim Ansary saw that message on Facebook. So while Tamim Ansary, the author of this book, which I'm going to try to read at some point, even though I expressed some frustration with Tamim is an intelligent Afghan scholar. So is Zahir Wahab. And so Zahir is probably going to be talking to me in the near future. He's busy right now as a professor at Lewis and Clark, but he has made certain recommendations to me with regards to learning about Afghan history, the Cliff Notes, being that I'm not from Afghanistan. I don't speak Farsi, but I feel in my heart that I should use my intelligence, the strength that I have mentally, to put together a summary of what's been done to these people's homeland. I feel an allegiance not only to Portland, Oregon and America, and off-gridders in Colorado and New Mexico, but an allegiance to my father's homeland. And so I'm going to be getting more into that. Turning off the internet access at specific times. So where I currently lay my head at night, the internet goes off at night. Okay? Because if you're sensitive like me, having Wi-Fi around you, whether it's your own Wi-Fi or your neighbor's Wi-Fi, that can interfere with sleep. Whereas other human beings with different genetics, they may be able to just pass out while still playing video games or with the TV still on. I know my grandpa, Morris Nagel of Nagel Fort Covering in Aurora, Oregon, would fall asleep to the TV. And my grandma, who was a Democrat, he was a Republican, she was a Democrat. And she would watch like CNN all day long. So yeah, they watch a lot of TV, and I would say that's not very healthy. During that period in which I stopped consuming all conspiratorial content and I just went all mainstream all the time from 2021 to 2022, I watched a lot of Roseanne at night. And yeah, I'm not real proud of that, but I'll admit it. But that was part of my therapy, folks, is getting away from hardcore conspiratorial content, doomsday content, fear-mongering content. I will say this. We're not allowed to talk about the health event. And they say that the health event was a big, big deal in Afghanistan. I don't know if I believe that. I know that when I initially read about the coronavirus cases, when they were trying to scare us and say at the hospitals that they were at capacity in California, in other places, no beds left. And I kept following up the report, kept watching CNN to see, well, what's going to happen next? I'm on the edge of my seat. What's going to happen next? And there really was no like, oh my God. There really was no major, how do I phrase this? Like catastrophe. They just kept, in my opinion, not to downplay the health event, but they kept acting like we were on the edge. And so I looked at Afghanistan, in which they weren't sending a bunch of you-know-whats. And at that time, the Taliban had not yet taken control. The U.S. was still there. So I'm not sure how many of the you-know-what shots that they sent to Afghanistan. I'm just here to tell you that I'm a little bit skeptical about their claims that the coronavirus was a big deal over there. And I would say that one of the benefits maybe of being an Afghani, a nomad, is that if you're separated from the rest of the world and you don't have international travelers coming and going, not to knock that, but if you don't have a bunch of Chinese coming and going and travelers from Europe, although I don't believe that necessarily it all came from China, the point is, if you don't have massive international travel and tourism in and out of your country, you're less likely to see the spread of a major pandemic in those regions. So there's a plus and a minus to everything. You can also look up the old Chinese parable, good luck, bad luck. Limiting specific content. People might use the internet, but too much of their lives are integrated with their smartphone and other screens to simply avoid them together. You know, it's when I go to Starbucks once in a while, they're like, well, you don't have to pay for a refill. Yes, I had a refill of Starbucks coffee, and that's like taking a narcotic. Folks, you've seen me on those days where I had 2 cups of coffee, and those are days in which I put out a lot of videos. But like if you just add the Starbucks app to your phone, you can get free refills. It's like, I'd rather pay the 54 cents. Thank you very much. I go to McDonald's once in a while, guilty as charged, just had a McChicken, and they're like, always when I go there, are you using the app today? No, I'm not using the app today. Okay, go ahead with your order. I am so tired of this whole peer pressure thing to get on the app. It's part of that technological mind control for everybody to have a phone with them at all times. So people talk about being concerned with the microchip, but yet they consume conspiratorial content on a phone, also without realizing that they're being tracked or not caring that they're being tracked and being manipulated by algorithms. And you can't find conspiracy theorists on the internet talking about how these algorithms have promoted extreme far-right content, neo-Nazism, and elements of black supremacy, right? You can't find them. And if you are familiar with them, feel free to let me know down in the comment section. So getting rid of apps, websites, and software, you can actually go and ban certain websites. You can ban yourself from going to YouTube, from going to Twitter. Brother Ma, they call Elon Musk. Wonderful Elon Musk and his trips to China. You'd think that would get people thinking. They keep going, China, China, China. China sent us this. China sent us that. China causes the coronavirus. Elon Musk goes to China. Grasshoppers and crickets. Think, McFly, think. We have a massive degrading of human consciousness and superintelligence. So while other people, their consciousness is going, crashing like a 747 into the Pentagon, I feel like my brain is expanding. I feel like I'm understanding concepts and ideas and human psychology from not only a hyper-intelligent perspective, but a much more intuitive perspective. And maybe we can attribute that to the fact that I don't waste my money on cannabis any longer, although I miss it. Oh, I love that cannabis, right? And I got plenty of sources to get that cannabis right now. But I choose not to. Don't take medications. I take vitamins. I take magnesium. I take GABA. I take valerian root. What else do I take? I take Synergy Green Superfood. I'm using essential oils, thanks to Tammy. And a woman by the name of Tammy, who deals with ancient astrology as opposed to the modern astrology, she is going to be my guest in the near future. Family support groups, focusing on group therapies, family therapy, yeah, that's for the birds. I don't believe in that stuff. Everybody could benefit from having a counselor or a therapist. I don't deal with that stuff, however, because, I dabbled with that stuff years ago, and it just aggravated me, the lack of empathy, the pushing of drugs. So I don't deal with that, even though a person like me with the child abuse that I've suffered from, that I talked about on video, it would be great to be able to talk about those things with someone, but there's a real lack of empathy with regards to my unique experiences. And so it's really better that I just talk with you on the internet, real talk, and work on attracting those of you with higher voltage souls as opposed to the lower voltage souls, most of which are subscribed to my original YouTube channel. The term high voltage souls, by the way, was used by the author and solar researcher by the name of Maurice Cotterell, who is a regular guest on Coast to Coast AM. So if you haven't learned about the solar cycles from Maurice Cotterell, he talks about things also from a deeper perspective. How solar minimum is connected to infertility, miscarriages, and solar maximum, which we're going into and are now, is related to higher sexuality and fertility and more babies. Knowing about digital detox. Exploring wilderness retreats. I would love to have a real wilderness retreat with no smartphone, no internet, no social media, and hanging out with good men and women, no beer, right? Maybe some good old MDMA. But whatever, man, whatever. That's different, you know? I really would like to have another off-grid experience in Colorado. I really would like to have an off-grid experience in Central Oregon, maybe Idaho, maybe Montana. I don't know about Wyoming. I certainly don't know about the South. Definitely doubt that. But as far as the northern states, part of me has a special place in my heart for the state of Oregon, but I do not see myself making the same mistakes that I did in the past that led to me being homeless in my truck. I have more that I'm going to be talking about with regards to Portland, Oregon in the future. So stay tuned for that. But there's many ways in which many people are experiencing spiritual attacks in Portland, Oregon. Not just the homeless, but the people that live there. And so for me to be at my best, I got to pull back from my current addiction to the internet. But before I came back to the internet, as I mentioned before, I stopped watching movies and using the internet for about 1 month. I read several books, including Terry Crew's book, Tough, in which he exposes black supremacy. And there's going to be some people in denial about black supremacy, but that's unfortunate and hypocritical, because there is Islamic supremacy, there is black supremacy, there is white supremacy. For some, there is Latino supremacy, but I don't really see it. I don't really see Native American supremacy or Asian supremacy. I primarily see elements of the algorithm pushing versions of Islam, the white supremacy, in East Indian supremacy, and black supremacy. Meanwhile, good white people, good black people, good East Indians, and good Muslims look bad because of the behavior of the unconscious people that are being led, again, dun, 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 by the algorithm. What kind of a conspiracy theorist seriously doesn't suspect the algorithm auto-suggesting videos to them? Really, think. I'm here to encourage you to think. Digging into the screen drunk phenomena, right? We all laugh at how addictive and compelling this technology is, but is it funny? Is it funny that you can waste hours of sleep time looking at AI-based algorithms designed to feed you what you have shown the AI system you want? I saw Chris Green and others using AI to create doomsday artwork. Chris Green has shown a lot of doomsday artwork on his channel. And if you haven't heard my critique of AMTV, my constructive feedback, not to be confused with slander, you can look at my channel, OTBTV 2.0, for that. Same thing with Alex Jones. I give my constructive feedback, the cliff notes of it, although there's more I could say, much more I can say. Balancing your values with your tech use. What's the harm? It's only a screen. As I said, there's spiritual attacks that can come upon a person. This book brought me closer to Christ. This is by J.P. Haggart, and even though he doesn't want to talk to me or even reply to my comments on Facebook, he talks about something called the demonic option. So if you're looking at things where there's demons and servers, whether it be porn sites, too much YouTube, Facebook, where there are malevolent spirits in the machine, if there are certain things that you're doing that open up the back door, you can come under attack, or people that are possessed by demons will be drawn to you. Even criticizing somebody out there who's possessed by demons, so basically engaging in leaving comments, which some people might consider to be a troll comment, but even if it's constructive feedback and you're calling somebody out who's promoting Satanism, who's promoting racism, that still could be interpreted, at least by demons, as a troll-like comment, even if you do intend to come in the light. So I left the comment on a certain person's channel saying that he was being a hypocrite by mocking a follower of Jesus Christ and engaging in racism towards a man named Abdullah, basically saying, you people are suffering because you worship a demon. And he's like, I don't worship Allah, I worship Jesus Christ. And the guy comes back and leaves a smiley face clown emoji. And yet on his own channel, he allegedly is exposing false New Age teachers, saying that one woman is saying that if you're bombed back to the Stone Age, you deserve it. And then he fired off at her. And then I went to her channel. She had said nothing about the people being bombed deserving it. She was saying that Earth is a classroom, so learn. He's saying, what kind of a classroom is this? When I met Mark Passio, he got angry with me in response to my video saying Earth is a classroom. So there are people out there that act like they're truthers, that are of the light, that actually get angry when they're being told that, yes, we are here to learn and evolve. Because in reality, they don't want to evolve. They're angry with God that they're here. And they don't want to accept the fact that Earth is a classroom. And either you're going to learn and evolve, or your ass is going to be recycled or come back in the form of the human being that you stalked, that you dehumanized, that you directed racism against. So I think that a lot of the modern Nazis, neo-Nazis that have an allegiance to Adolf Hitler, if there's any justice to this universe, they are going to come back after their lifetime in the form of human being that they demonized. And this is absolutely fair. And who's to say that this isn't what happened to me? Maybe I made some mistake in a past life that resulted in me coming in this form. Don't really know. Maybe my soul just decided to come here and made a decision to come into this combination of genetics to access the junk DNA. So at this point in time, as we pass through the 2023 eclipse, as we pass through and into the April 2024 eclipse, there are aspects of my psyche and consciousness that are wide awake right now. So it's no surprise to me when I really boost my energy field forward that it's not going to be attractive to the people that used to watch my old content, let alone old girlfriends that I still unconsciously make the mistake of, to be honest with you, fantasizing about. Right, I'll fantasize about old girlfriends rather than look at pornography because I'm not totally abstinent. But maybe at some point in the future, I will evolve beyond that behavior as well. I think that it's a big mistake to ever fornicate with women that don't care about your own kind existing. I think that is not a good thing. So we should take it to God and pray. Pray for our addictions to be released from us, to be taken from us in the name of Jesus Christ. I'm not going to disrespect those good Muslims that are out there that are watching this channel. And I hope that they understand that I'm not attacking them, but I'm not also going to get on board labeling myself a Muslim or read the Quran just because I will watch the Muhammadan Way Sufi channel that exposes the jinn. I have the gift of discernment to a degree, much more than I used to have, to where I can watch his channel and learn a great deal from him. So can you. And I can also learn from the Bible. We can type in protection prayers in the name of Jesus Christ, protection prayers for friends and family, even for those that hate us. I'm a little hesitant to pray for my haters, but people are encouraging me to do that. And so maybe I will get to that point to where I more sincerely, I have prayed that certain people that harm me psychologically in the past, that they would show me in time that they rose above their hateful ways. And I see no evidence of that. And as I said recently, I don't think that racists get better. They get worse because so far in my incarnation, I have not seen anybody that admitted to be a follower of white supremacy say, Alex, I've changed. I just want you to know I've changed. And folks, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. So I'm not convinced that I'm going to get those emails in the future. But if somebody happens to have that experience and they're above ego, and they realize the error of their ways, I have an ear, I have an email. And so my email inbox is open. That includes for those women out there that will understand at some point that I did accurately warn them about human trafficking. And if you look at my old warnings about human trafficking that go back to 2007, and you look at the rate of human trafficking in recent years, it's documented that it already got worse. So for women to not see the value in the things that I'm speaking about is indicative of a more demonic presence over most of the human population. So it's not the same thing as hating all people, but hating the programming that most of the human species is under. Anyway, I left that comment on that guy's channel saying that what he's doing is unconscious. Instantly, I get a troll comment calling me the source of the world's problems, as if I'm that powerful, saying that China's awesome and that I hate all people. And like I said, it came instantly. Are you with me? It came instantly as I left that comment on that other person's channel who's not even going to see it because I'm shadow banned so severely that the comments that I leave on other channels do not show up. I can see them on my side of the screen, but I do not see them. Even a brand new channel, I do not see them. When I open a new browser and I look, the comment is not there. Folks, this is not an accident. We are being interfered with at a level that is beyond anything that we've ever seen before. So again, read books, write books. If you believe that you really know something about the New World Order system or philosophy or gnosis or Christianity, or you really know something about the hypocrisy of modern Christianity, I appreciate Scott and his long, detailed, grammatically correct, maybe you should be my book editor, no, grammatically correct essays, basically, in the comment section, but we really should be graduating to the degree in which we write books. The word that I want to use is zine. And I don't think that we should limit ourselves to Amazon, but we should use the AIB system as long as we have it serve us instead of us let it control us. Something to that effect. Parenting in the screen age, right? I don't appreciate my childhood completely, but I was sheltered from sexual abuse and molestation. I was sheltered from seeing my mother have sex with others. As far as I understand, when I had a mother, she was not running around with a bunch of men. She kept me away from violent movies. She kept me away from violent video games. She kept me away from alcohol. For the most part, she stopped smoking cigarettes when I was a baby and did not smoke when I was with her, although she picked it up later, unfortunately. What I'm here to say is, even though I have talked about things about my childhood that I'm not okay with, I'm going to say it again. My mother was conscious enough to make sure that there were limits on how much TV I was able to watch. No Arnold Schwarzenegger, no R-rated movies. I went to my dad's house at his old apartment off 22nd and Clinton in Southeast Portland for that. So there's a lot of unconscious parents. I don't even need to read this. We all should know this. So if you're a parent by chance, hopefully if you're watching my my channel, you're conscious enough to make sure that your kid is not on the phone all day long, talking to strangers, on social media all day long, talking with strangers, especially if you have a girl. Because a lot of women, as they come of age, they start getting exposed to pornography. They start getting experimental. They start feeling those feelings. And then when they're exposed to certain things, they may become addicts early on. And I'm telling you, I'm bringing stories about porno addicts that are women that are 11 years old, 13 years old. And I'm like, wow, that's really perverse. None of us as men of God should ever get turned on by that or think that that is okay and that that is a-okay. You know, pornography warps the brain and it takes us away from what could be called spiritual sex. And because I was never in a deep relationship with the women that I fornicated with, I would say there was a real lack of spiritual sex. A lot of wham bam, thank you ma'am. You want seconds? Let's go for seconds. But like, there's more heartbreak there because when you court up to someone, also the woman retains the DNA of the man. So if you're a spiritual man like me and some of these women hate you, you can come under psychic attack from their angry thoughts towards you and the fact that they actually hate you and resent you as a human being, even if you had sexual intercourse. You see what I'm saying? So for like men that are not men of God, that are not pushing back against the New World Order in a spiritual, non-racist way, not a radicalized way, you don't really have the leeway to consume garbage content, play violent video games, and you really should limit the amount of violent movies that you watch. I prefer music from the 70s and 80s. I don't listen to gangster rap or death metal, Pantera or any of that. Just a little bit of Megadeth here and there. I find some of the old school Megadeth to be beautiful, beautiful music with very prophetic lyrics. But I will listen to one or two songs tops, and then it's time to go back to Madonna, Sade, Boston, Rush. And when I watch movies, I like movies of the 1980s, the 1970s, and the early 90s. And then once we get after 2000, yeah, I don't think so. Homie, don't play that. The future of internet and screen addiction. You don't need to be a futurist or technology expert to see that digital internet-based technologies will play a huge role in your future going forward. Any of you remember the movie THX 1138 when he gets home from work and he goes to stay with his roommate who also has a shaved head and they're all wearing white in these sterile environments, and some penis pump device comes down from the ceiling and he watches a couple human beings doing some new dancing right in front of him, and he's got this machine going up and down, up and down. So we have the future robot sex toys, the Neuralink chip from Elon Musk, and mind reading technologies. And I don't know how much I got into this in the first part, but I do believe that when you smoke a lot of dope and you're not spiritual and you have entities around you, they may be communicating your thoughts. Follow me here. They may be communicating what your thoughts are to the entity that runs AI, right? Are you with me? Have I lost you yet, McFly? Right? So that's what I see in spirit, is that when we're not clean and we draw entities to ourselves, they could be communicating our private thoughts to the entity ruling AI. There's other things that may be coming with the future of technology. There are articles that I read 10 years ago about thoughts being beamed into people's heads in Europe and London, where they put out some experimental technologies where it was basically a commercial, and people would walk by this kiosk of sorts in this major city, and all of a sudden they're hearing voices in their head. It's a combination, folks, of technology that's out there, in many cases non-human technology, as well as human technologies, also known as Havana syndrome. And it is entities. In many cases, people that are suffering from schizophrenia, which thank God I do not. I do not hear things that are not there. I do not see things that are not there. My perceptions of the alien agenda is information in my DNA, in my soul, and in the research that I've read from books. It's not from things that I see or things that I hear. So, I'm very suspicious of those folks like James Gillen, Rompha, aka Jay-Z Knight. Those individuals, including David Wilcock, even David Icke, that he heard voices and said he was Jesus back in the day. I'm very suspicious of a lot of these people's information that claim to, including Tom Horn, that claim to hear, quote, the voice of God. Sometimes I wonder what they and Chris Green and others that claim that they're hearing the voice of God, what they're actually tapping into. Wearing your tech. So we got these watches people are wearing now that take your heart rate, but that's very invasive for these watches to be linked into this database, which of course China can access. A lot of people have gone to Ancestry and me, or 23 Ancestry, and turned in their DNA to find out what race they are, when in reality, right, race is an illusion, and it's a product of eugenics, which was a big motivator of Adolf Hitler and the Thule Society, the dark side that is, us being divided by the illusions of separation. So I really don't think that you need to go that route, although it can help you understand that you're not just a white man or a white woman when you get your DNA test, by realizing that you might have Middle Eastern heritage, Native American heritage, even African heritage, or Latino heritage. It may free you from this idea that you are oh so separate from the rest of these mud people or something. And I'm not using that phrase as that I'm labeling it mud people, but this is actually a phrase that a lot of people do use to describe the non-white world. Implanting devices. Elon Musk is actively working on the Neuralink, in which he hopes to connect people's brains to the internet. And so when that happens, there will be no privacy. And we can even see a Manchurian type situation where people are put under mind control and they go out on killing sprees. But also what I meant to say was Minority Report, where people are accused of planning crimes by thinking of certain things, basically thought crime from 1984. Take a week to become aware of how you use your screens. List your goals for your life. So my goal is to write a book. My goal is to keep going to the park when it's not raining, to walk for 1 hour, 2 hours. I had a cholesterol issue briefly due to not eating the right foods and not exercising. I think that has mediated itself recently. Basically, every single call that I get when my phone is on is a robocall. So, at this point, I really don't need to have a phone. Pick one day to steer clear of your smartphone. Now, even when you shut off your phone, it may still be recording you, and it may still be emitting unhealthy radiation. So again, Faraday cages or boxes. Okay, this is big enough for a laptop, EMP protection. Plus I have some smaller bags, so this is a 5-pack. This is a 5-pack, and I haven't started using it yet, but you may want to do that. Delete all the junk mail. Unsubscribe to all unneeded emails. I definitely unsubscribe to the Clyde Lewis newsletter. Put yourself on a digital diet. Stop taking your phone into the bathroom, the kitchen, or on a walk. Turn off any notification that you can. There's actually a point in time where I turned off notifications for my original YouTube channel. Because again, I became so psychically sensitive to not only when people left comments, I still am, that it just got in the way of me feeling a sense of peace. I still find myself going over and looking at, Gypsy Foxbo with 2 X's over at BitChute, and I'll seem to know exactly when he's uploading, or I'll seem to know when there's an email in my Proton email. So I still do seem to have this almost transhumanistic, non-local awareness thing going on with when I am contacted. Communicate a clear message of love and concern. Consider the level of help that your loved ones might need. Try to get your loved one to join you in your effort to help, but take your time. And so, like I said, I have lived off the grid for many, many years, but I wasn't really fully off the grid in that I was online all the time, and I made the mistake of sharing way too much personal information and showing my physical bed space, my living space, right? And ultimately, there were too many obsessive people that were way too focused on me instead of their own lives. And when you're hypersensitive like me, it feels basically like your mind is being invaded and that your physical land is being invaded. And so as we conclude, Philip K. Dick talked about this, the modern dystopian futuristic reality where one mind can invade another. And he also talked about AI type technologies, although he might not have called it AI. So in many, many ways, Philip K. Dick, although a lot of his writing can be really difficult to get through, if you get on YouTube and you watch some documentaries about Philip K. Dick's life from people that have already psychoanalyzed his books, and if you listen to his lectures, he is absolutely a modern day prophet. And Eric G. for being out there, I appreciate you for listening to me years ago and finding my content now, as well as Eli in Portland, as well as Scott on Substack, as well as many others who I'm not yet mentioning. And the best is yet to come. I'm Alex Ansary, reminding you that the path to the ultimate truth and place of power still lies within. Take care.